Okay. So it's good to see everyone. So this talk, How Can I Help, is the name of it, and it's kind of a follow-up to a talk I gave up in Nevada City on July 3rd. And that talk was recorded, and it's on, if you go to Mountain Stream, emptystream.org, and you go to the menu, and you go to resources, and you go down to Video Dharma, you'll find that talk. And I give you that information because I'm gonna move on from that. I'll do a little summary here, and then we'll do something a little different tonight, which is well, I'll talk to you about it after I do this little summary. So this first talk that I did was called Mindfully Facing the Climate Crisis, or Climate Change. And I base that on some things I have been exploring and listening to and seeing on the that someone sent me some links to, and found it very very important and very interesting, and some wonderful resources and things that are there. If you go to listen to that talk on the video, the resources is told there. It's so part of it was that started the talk, or that was a conversation between two of my most esteemed teachers. One of them is Bhikkhu Analayo, and the other one is Joseph Goldstein. And they were talking about the climate crisis. And Analayo said that he felt like this is the gravest concern that we have in our lifetime, essentially, that this is something of critical importance. And Joseph Goldstein reported that he agreed, and he said, but I don't understand why people aren't more engaged in this. Why aren't people doing more about it? And if they do, how can they be engaged without burning out? So that's kind of the crux of the issue, or the problem. And what we're challenged to do is to find this balance between opening of our hearts to experience and see the problem for what it is, and then balance that with stability and equanimity to see ultimately the emptiness of all things, or the fact of impermanence, that this is just the nature of life. So how do we do that? And what they said, and what I think is right, spot on, is that it's we have mindfulness combined with compassion and wisdom form the key blend of these three of the qualities we need to cultivate and maintain and nurture in order to be able to face this. And the good news in all of this for us who are practicing mindfulness and interested in it, or we wouldn't be here, the thing we have going for us is that we have we have a practice, we have a way, we have the tools, we have the Four Noble Truths, we have the Eightfold Path, we have each other and Sangha and teachings, and all of these things are the things that will help us to have this combination of compassion and wisdom and mindfulness. Mindfulness sits in the middle. You can kind of see it as the bird of mindfulness with the wings of wisdom and compassion on each side. So what Analayo said that I thought was interesting, provocative, was he said, compassion arises when we are willing and able to come very close to the edge of suffering without being engaged in it. So we can touch to the edge of suffering. We can see what's there and how it's impacting us, but we don't fall into it, or we don't attach to it. So another way to see that is not attaching to the suffering. So that's there's a lot more on the talk, and I'm not going to go into that tonight. Tonight I want to focus on this last part of that other talk, which is how can we help? How can we, first of all, help ourselves to find this balance? And in what ways can we then help to address climate crisis? No matter what our circumstances, no matter who we are, there's things we can do. So we'll come back to that. So, but I'm going to do this a little differently tonight. I thought rather than I thought I'd do it through poetry. So what I'm going to do is kind of take us through some steps and use poetry, to much better than I could, to express some of these aspects of helping ourselves and helping others. And then we can have an open discussion at the end, see what you feel or have to offer, or questions. So through this lens, the first focus then is on the development and the nurturing of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom in ourselves. And this is a difficult reality, climate crisis, to face. I think we all at some level know that. And so we need courage, and we need ways to offset the issues of this with a sense of peace, inner peace. So let's start. Some of these poems are going to be very familiar to you, but I invite you to kind of think of them in terms of the distress that some of us, probably all of us, are feeling from what's going on. This is one of the poems of best advice, The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light for a time. I rest in the grace of the world and am free. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. And I don't know about you, but for me, just reading that poem gives me a sense of relaxation, of connection with something more than all this stuff in the world. And here then is another poem that kind of has a little different edge of it, but the same kind of thing. It's a poem called Clearing by Martha Postlethwaite. Do not try to save the whole world or to do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. And that's a formula that really encompasses this practice. We're clearing, we're doing that. I was giving a little instruction on that in the meditation. Clearing the obstacles. We're sitting patiently until we hear the song of our own life. Thich Nhat Hanh would say, until you also hear the sound of the earth crying, till you see what's there and you give yourself, then you can give yourself to the world because you've experienced both sides of it. So there's these practices of going out in nature, of being patient, of opening, of allowing, and getting a sense of relief. And another piece of this then is that we also need to connect with that, where that brings us joy and richness in the moment. So these two poems, they're just descriptions of having those moments of joy and richness that I love. They're not. So one of them is called Late Afternoons in June, The Fog Rides In, and it's by Robert Hass. Late afternoons in June, the fog rides in across the ridge of pines, ghosting them, and settling on the bay to give a muted gray luster to the last hours of light, and to take back what we didn't know at midday we'd experience as lack. The blue of summer and the dry, spiced scent of the summer woods. It's as if some cold salt god had wandered inland for a nap. You still see herons fishing in the shallows. A kingfisher or an osprey emerges for a moment out of the high, drifting mist and then vanishes again. And the soft, light green leaves on the thimbleberry and the ridged coffeeberry leaves and the needles of the redwoods and pines look more sprightly in the cool gray air with the long dusk coming in, since fog is their natural element. I had it in mind that this description of the weather would be a way to say things come and go, a way of subsuming the rhythms of arrival and departure, to a sense of how brief the time is on a summer afternoon when the sun is warm on your neck and the world might well be a dog sleeping on the porch, or a child for whom an afternoon is endless, endless. Time, thick honey, and no one saying goodbye. I just love that poem for that sense of the beauty of it and the temporariness of it and the changing nature of it. And that's what we have always, always. And one more sort of on that same note. This is called From Blossoms by Lai Young Lee. From blossoms comes this brown paper bag of peaches we bought from the boy at the bend in the road where we turned toward signs painted peaches. From laden boughs, from hands, from sweet fellowship in the bins, comes nectar of the roadside, succulent peaches we devour, dusty skin and all. Comes the familiar dust of summer, dust we eat. Oh, to take what we love inside, to carry within us an orchard, to eat not only the skin, but the shade, not only the sugar, but the days, to hold the fruit in our hands, adore it, then bite into the round jubilance of peach. There are days we live as if death were nowhere in the background, from joy to joy, from wing to wing, from blossom to blossom, impossible blossom, to sweet, impossible blossom. So the joy of a summer day and all its manifestations, even 90-something degrees or whatever it is right now. It is kind of beautiful. And one more on the experience in meditation of kind of being there and that sense of, well, this is called Embracing Formal Practice, Tasting Mindfulness, and it's by Jon Kabat-Zinn. Have you ever had the experience of stopping so completely, of being in your body so completely, of being in your life so completely, that you knew and what you don't know, what had been and what was yet to come, and the way things are right now no longer held even the slightest hint of anxiety or discord? It would be a moment of complete presence, beyond striving, beyond mere acceptance, beyond the desire to escape or fix anything or plunge ahead. A moment of pure seeing, pure feeling, a moment in which life simply is, and that isness grabs you by all your senses, all your memories, by your very genes, by your loves, and welcomes you home. So those are moments that are there for us too, when it just, maybe they last 5 seconds, but everything comes together and it's like, oh, this is it. So those are these this is it moments. So we need that. We need the way to place to go in ourselves when we're agitated. And we need to go inside and open to the sorrow and the pain of the fragility and loss in our current situation. So I'll read you a poem that relates to that. This is a poem called The Unbroken by Rashini Ria. There is a brokenness out of which comes the unbroken, a shatteredness out of which blooms the unshatterable. There is a sorrow beyond all grief which leads to joy, and a fragility out of whose depths emerges strength. There is a hollow space, too vast for words, through which we pass with each loss, out of whose darkness we are sanctioned into being. There is a cry deeper than all sound, whose serrated edges cut the heart as we break open to the place inside which is unbreakable and whole while learning to sing. So that reminds me of the Leonard Cohen song, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." And it's true, you know, that sense of this welled up sorrow. I don't know about you, but I know sometimes I've had that experience of feeling the welled up sorrow and just it breaks open. And when it breaks open, it's like everything changes, and there is a raw beauty in it that wouldn't happen without the breaking. So, as we connect to this mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, and taste the blend in our courage, determination, and spirit, we can begin to ask ourselves, how can we help in this time of crisis? Sharon Salzberg, in her book Real Life, talks about the insights that are classically born out of meditation practice. This is from the teachings. And one of them is knowledge of vision of what is path and what is non-path. So when we're doing anything, or making a choice or a decision, when we're meditating, when we're, doesn't matter. That's a question we can ask ourselves. You can call it the Eightfold Path, or the path of the Brahma Viharas, or any of the paths that we know in the teachings. And is what I'm doing, is what I'm just deciding, it's what I'm wanting, is this the path, or is this non-path? And we all do things. It's not that we're going to be on the path every minute of every day. Sometimes we need some diversion. Sometimes there's just a lot to do. Although is a way that we can even do almost everything. We can. I mean, if we can do everything within the lens of being on the path. So it's a good question to ask ourselves. We can ask ourselves, what pasture am I dwelling in right now? Is what I'm feeding myself on right now, physically, mentally, emotionally, whether it's food or news or diversions, are they part of the path that leads to equanimity and peace, or not? Simple enough question, and see what happens when we ask ourselves that. So I'm going to read a few poems that kind of relate to that, or little pieces. Some of them are little. So this is Christy Nelson. To love in the face of fear is bold. To love in the face of hatred is courageous. To make the choice to stretch through resistance, to love even more deeply and widely in the face of blatant acts of fear and hatred is a heroism of the heart that may be our only hope to heal this world. I'm going to read that one more time because it's short. To love in the face of fear is bold. To love in the face of hatred is courageous. To make the choice to stretch through resistance, to love even more deeply and widely in the face of blatant acts of fear and hatred is a heroism of the heart that may be our only hope to heal this world. And this is Chanam Trungpa, and it's one of my very favorite little pieces. Hold the sadness and pain of samsara in your heart, and at the same time, the power and vision of the great eastern sun. Then the warrior can make a proper cup of tea. And in a way that captures it all too, because it's like if we can make room for the sadness and at the same time we can feel the power of interconnectedness, interdependence, of this vast mystery of life and transition that we're in, if we can experience both of those things, then we can carry on, and we can be warriors in trying to do what we can under our circumstances to stay on the path and do the right thing. And then this is a part of a poem by Roger Keyes called, I can never say it right, Hagusai Says. And this is the end of the poem. He says it doesn't matter if you draw or write books. It doesn't matter if you saw wood or catch fish. It doesn't matter if you sit at home and stare at the ants on the veranda, or the shadows of the trees and grasses in your garden. It matters that you care. It matters that you feel. It matters that you notice. It matters that life lives through you. Contentment is life living through you. Joy is life living through you. Peace is life living through you. He says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Look, feel, let life take you by the hand. Let life live through you. So that's pretty self-explanatory. It's like, don't be afraid. Just let it happen. Let our lives live through us. And then there's Rumi. This one has been kind of waking me up in the morning. The breezes at dawn have secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Okay, and this is a little bit longer, and this is kind of this is Joanna Macy, who is in the resources that I looked at. Oh no, she wasn't there actually. But if you go on YouTube and look up climate change and Joanna Macy, you'll get there's a YouTube that she did a couple of years ago, and it's just wonderful to watch her express difficult things with this glow and kind of sense of relaxation and freedom. Beautiful. So this is called Grace and the Great Turning. When you act on behalf of something greater than yourself, you begin to feel it acting through you with a power greater than your own. This is grace. Today, as we take risks for the sake of something greater than our separate individual lives, we are feeling graced by other things, other beings, and by Earth itself. Those with whom and on whose behalf we act give us strength and eloquence and staying power we didn't know we had. We just need to practice knowing that and remembering that we are sustained by each other. The web of life, we are sustained by each other in the web of life. Our true power comes as a gift, like grace, because truth is sustained by others. But in truth, it is sustained by others. If we practice drawing on the wisdom and beauty and strengths of our fellow human beings and our fellow species, we can go into any situation and trust that the courage and intelligence required will be supplied. So, there's no perfect right answer to how we as individuals can help. There's 1,000 ways, and my doing and understanding that my doing is not dependent on changing the world. We all have to give up on being dependent on the outcome, because it's the act itself. Karma is the completion, the result of actions. And so for ourselves as individuals, for all beings, for the earth, what we do, the decisions we make, how we choose, that's the change we can make. And that's all we can do. And as this whole talk hopefully conveys, it's a balance. We have to be able to be in this moment, to enjoy the joys, the beautiful joys that we have now. Joanna Macy says, just be grateful that you're here, that you're alive, that you have that you've been given this. And then you do what you can, given your circumstances, and always starting with keeping yourself healed and whole as you can in that balance. So I'm just going to read this. Everyone's probably heard this, but then we'll open it up. This is just the fleeting world from the Diamond Sutra. Thus shall ye think of all this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. So that's my offering. Let's see, I'll put this up back into the regular view. And just as you feel you want to offer something or ask something or share something, whatever, just unmute yourself.
Hi there, this is Kai.
Hi, Kai.
I can't help but be a good student. When the teacher asks for participation, I have to raise my hand.
Good.
I love being read to, especially poetry. That was beautiful. I loved all those poems. I have a wall next to my what's in the kitchen next to my desk, and I put little post-its. When I hear something, I write it down on the post-it and I stick it up there. And I was busy writing all these quotes from all these different poems. So I'll go back and listen and get all the names of the authors. But once again, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for showing up. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate all of you being there. Thank you.
To remember to unmute. And all I could, well, I just am so grateful for this hour, or how many minutes it was. It's your reading of these poems is just struck me as unbelievably beautiful and going right to the point, saying it a number of different ways. But just thank you so much for waking me up, actually. Yeah.
You're welcome. I mean, poetry says it so much better than anything else. I mean, everything's good, but
Yeah.
but there's something about hearing something through that language that cuts right through. I agree.
Yeah.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. Yeah, I'd like to echo the sentiments of all the wonderful poems that you read. Just fabulous. The first one, The Peace of Wild Things, I was just walking the dogs this morning, talking to my brother in Illinois on the phone, and I was talking about my dogs, and we were kind of saying that about them just not worried about thoughts. They were just living, wholly and completely. And we were both saying, yeah, wouldn't it be nice if we could just be like our dogs?
Yeah. And and there are moments, and those are the moments that are so rich when we do kind of forget about it all and we're just here.
I'd like to say hi to Al. Haven't talked to him.
Hi, Al.
Hi, Al.
I too like the poems. I'm trying to get better at poems, so I'm going to definitely listen to the recording again and hear
good.
because they are powerful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
A nice way of doing it, Maeve.
Thanks. Al, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I agree with all the sentiments that have been stated so far. Yeah, they were wonderful. I'm reading about the protests in Birmingham during the civil rights movement, and anyway, and just the the courage that was required at that moment, and
Yeah.
and I guess Joanna Macy's thing about the courage being supplied from the collective, I think, was something that was really important at that point, and something that we can draw on. I also, I wonder sometimes if, our first world privilege and our white privilege and whatever, sometimes allows us to not really take stock of what's going on and see the importance of making the changes and being politically active or whatever it takes. And so anyway, so yeah, for me, it's not always that, it was one of I guess it was one of the poems that talked about that resting and being patient until there's the clarity of what to do. And maybe I don't have the patience, but I feel like the gravity of the situation, the immediacy of the situation, may not allow us infinite patience. Anyway, so yeah, those are some others.
I agree. I mean, and I don't know where you're at, Al. You might have the clarity at this point to know what you need to do. I think thinking about Tony Bernhard's statement, "Just don't make things worse," or there's in the other talk I gave, I talk about it some, that there's this line between and in the talk between I think it's the one between Anna Lyo and Joseph Goldstein, this thing about what do you do with anger and I know there's a quote from Ajahn Sakito, who's talking about how we can get angry and righteous anger, but when it moves to rage, it's like you have to. It's a tricky business, and so yeah.
Yeah, I don't I don't suggest anger or rage or a solution in any way, but whether seeing to what extent I need to take responsibility and move forward without anger or rage. But anyway, I just not, for me, and where I sit, it's not always that clear to what extent that I can engage in purely working on my equanimity versus moving forward with social action, that sort of thing.
Right, and I think that social action is an important part. Obviously, our voices all need to be heard, but there's a lot of ways that we can practice work about the climate crisis. Sure. Just what we do with our, like that whole thing of how we deal with what we eat and disposables and how we heat our house and how we just I guess what I'm saying is I think we have to each find in our own circumstances, our own state of being, what we feel like we can do and do it, and not think that we have to wait till we can do some huge thing or change the world or whatever.
I would like to.
Oh, Susan, yes.
I would like to add something to what Al says. I've never been very much of an activist, but I can understand what he's saying. And I think as long as your activism is true to your heart, and that it's not a matter of the outcome. It, like that one poem says, you can't worry about the outcome. You just do what you can do and be satisfied with that.
Right. Agree.
So it doesn't cause you frustration. There's no reason for you to be suffer because of it, because of your activism.
Right. Agree.
So activism is great. I mean, it does wake people up, and
Yeah.
and I think it's a necessary thing, but but don't make yourself suffer. That's all.
Yeah. That idea of moving to the edge of the suffering.
Yeah.
So
I
that
think-
you can know it and see it and not turn your back on it, but not grab onto it and fall into the hole, the pit or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think for Buddhists and want to be a little bit more active, Aya Santachita started. She calls it the Earth Room. She's in San Rafael, and it's her goal is climate change. I mean, that's her emphasis, and she has talked several times about the trap of getting in the trap of wanting the outcome to be what she wants, rather than the act of participating and doing the action that helps or motivates or whatever, but to not get into the area of despair,
Right.
that it doesn't come out the way that you would like it to.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Thanks.
I don't know if that's just a protection for yourself, or maybe that's self-indulgent, a little protection for yourself, but it's more effective, I think, if you do it that way from the heart and not worry about the outcome.
Well, if you worry about the outcome, you're going to get overwhelmed and burned out very quickly, because obviously there's where there's a lot of complicated forces, but we can do what we can do, and that's where the satisfaction has to come. Cassie.
Yeah. Hi. I love this. I love this approach to this topic, because I think actually coming in here and knowing that we were going to talk about climate change, I could actually feel like some degree of anxiety around that, because it's such a it's obviously anxiety producing, right? And there's this way that, even though it's actually, it's what I studied in college, and I have trouble engaging with it, because it's so big. And so I don't know, I wanted to say that I appreciate yeah, the poetry. I think that was just such a nice way to experience it. Uh, and then just being new to this idea, or just the study of Buddhism and meditation, just looking at it through this lens is such a different way of seeing it, I think. because it makes sense. I think for me, I meet this topic and this entire idea with like so much resistance. It's just, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to engage it. I don't want to let it flow through me, right? And yeah, I think trying to approach it with the same way that I am trying to now approach, meditation, for instance, it's a different experience. So I wanted to say thank you. I think it's lovely. And also I'm going to have to sign off soon. So
Okay.
I wanted to say
Well,
thank
well, appreciate that. And the Buddha taught the middle way, and that's that's what this is. That poetry. That's what this. That is the beautiful thing, that finding that balance. Thank you.
I'd like to say something.
Okay.
So, I think she's right about it being so big. The problem is so big. And when I do think about it, there's just so much grief, just huge grief. So, I don't dwell on it. I think I repress the hell out of it, but the poetry contains it, so you can hear it without shattering.
Yeah. And you even hear that if you shatter, you can, out of the shattering comes kind of that awakening sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Jim, did you want to say something?
Yes. I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I'm delighted to see all the participants here tonight, because I haven't been with you in 2 weeks, and it's great. And I wanted to add, your poetry has always been wonderful for me to listen to. I've always enjoyed it, and I was, but in a subject of non-poetry, but I think that I've been reading 2 books. I finished them both. Thoreau and Emerson.
Oh.
Thoreau and Emerson. I've read Walking, and I've read Nature, from the beginning to the end completely in the last week, and they reflect upon really what we're talking about in terms of nature, and walking is a key to getting out in nature, and Emerson's. Those of you who have read Emerson know his beliefs about nature. So those are the 2 that I want to recommend anybody start reading those as well.
Sounds like a great recommendation. And I was so glad to see you, because I know you like this poetry, and I was like, yay!
That's true. Okay. Very nice seeing everybody.
Yes.
Same
Okay.
here.
Anybody else have anything they want to share before we do a little metta? Yes, for Al.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Diane, and when I was here there, Diane and I were part of the Climate Strike Friday group that was in front of City Hall in Auburn, and still is, I'm sure, and just the mutual support and common purpose of that group. It in some ways it felt kind of silly almost, but still it was we were showing up to let people know that there was something they should be paying attention to. And anyway, I just think that everyone felt a lot of positive energy, and it was kind of like a climate sangha in one way. And anyway.
Yes, yes, and let me say I've never gone, but I have frequently happened by on Friday at noon, and it just I always get excited when I see the group out there. So it's more than just that group, I think it wakes people up to see it. Not everyone, but it does. It has a purpose, for sure. In addition to supporting each other, but supporting each other is critical. That's sangha. So shall we do a brief little metta here to close the evening out? Just taking a couple of deep breaths and closing the eyes and sending these wishes to ourselves. May I live with an open heart and an open mind. Whatever blocks or obstructs my heart and mind from being open, may that be dissolved, so that through open-heartedness and open-mindedness, I may achieve true happiness. May I feel strong and healthy in mind and body. May I have peace and ease in my life. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. And may I awaken and be free from suffering. And as we wish these things for ourselves, just feeling them in our own hearts and realizing the truth of our interconnectedness, so that when we wish these things for ourselves, we naturally wish them for each other. We wish them for all of us. We wish them for our friends, our families, our neighbors, the people we share our community with on the roads and in the streets, and the people that we don't know in the larger community of beings all around this earth, wishing that all the beings on this earth may live with open hearts and open minds, that we may all have peace and ease and the things we need, that we may all be protected from harm, and that all the beings on this earth may awaken and be free. And then we send these same wishes out into the universe and beyond to all beings everywhere, those that are seen and unseen, known and unknown, born and to be born. May all beings everywhere be happy and be free and at peace. And if there's any benefit we've gathered through our practice this evening, may we dedicate that benefit to the well-being and awakening of all beings everywhere. Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maeve.
Maeve.
Lovely to see you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Everybody.